Hello, everyone. My name is Gabriela de Queiroz. It's such a pleasure to be here. I'll be taking questions today during the AMA. But before that, let me introduce a little bit about myself, a little bit about my background, so you can know where I'm coming from. So I'm going to share my screen and show you 3, 4 slides so you get to know a little bit what I do and my work. All right, so I manage a team of data scientists, machine learning engineers, open source developers at IBM. I also founded an organization called Our Ladies in 2012. And then last year, I started the AI Inclusive. I have a bachelor in statistics, a master in epidemiology, and another master's in statistics. So I've been in this field for over 10 years, working in different companies, startups, and doing research, as well as speaking at events, managing the team, being a statistician, epidemiologist, doing a lot of community involvement, mentoring other folks in the data science space. I do also a lot of speak engagements where I can share my knowledge, and also an educator. So the R Ladies, R is a programming language. If you are not familiar, very similar to Python. It was developed by a statistician several years ago, and now it's being used for data scientists, data analysts, researchers, biologists, journalists, etc. So Our Ladies, the goal of the organization is to promote diversity in the R community. It started in 2012, and now we are pretty much all over the world, in more than 50 countries, in 190 cities, and we have more than 70,000 members. So if you don't know about Our Ladies, just go to website ourladies.org and find out more where you can join a local chapter nearby your city. And then last year, with the whole thing around artificial intelligence and the implications on AI, or of AI, I decided to shift a little bit my focus, and to focus on bringing awareness of all the implications on from artificial intelligence on people's life. So AI Inclusive started with this desire of bringing the knowledge around artificial intelligence, and where our mission is to increase the representation and participation of minority groups in AI. So please join our website, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And together we are building a community where we are making AI more inclusive to everyone. And at IBM, just to give you an idea what we do at IBM, we build tools to make AI accessible and available to everyone. So we work with open source technologies, either creating new tools or contributing to open source tools that are already available. So we contribute and advocate for the open source technology. So we work on several different projects. We contribute to Apache Spark, Apache Arrow, TensorFlow, PyTorch, Kubeflow, Jupyter, scikit-learn, pandas, and so on. A lot of things that we have been doing, and we are very focused on open source data and AI technologies. And just to give you an overview of my career path, because this is going to help you formulate some questions for me. So as I mentioned, I've been working in different companies as a data scientist, lead data scientist, and then at IBM, I was first a developer advocate. So I kind of migrate from data science to developer advocate. And then for the past 2 years, I've been managing a team of open source developers. I also, throughout my career, I'm always mentoring people, so there is this other aspect as well. So that's pretty much Gabriela in a nutshell, and I'm looking forward to this AMA. It's a great opportunity for you to ask your questions and for us to interact. All right, Roberto, very nice to meet you.
Well, it is wonderful. It is great to meet you, Gabriela, and it's great to have you here. How are you feeling? Are you ready to take on this AMA?
I'm feeling great. Data Science Go is my favorite conference. It's like every year I've been waiting for the conference. Unfortunately, we cannot be together in a physical space, but I'm so glad to be here with you all.
Oh yeah, even though we have transcended already the physical barriers, it's going to be wonderful. It's going to be great. So, as I said before, attendees, you can send your questions through the chat, and we can get this AMA up and running. Welcome back, everyone, and I am sure that we're all so excited to get things started. Are you ready to get started with the AMA, Gabriela?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Okay, awesome. Well, let's kick things off with this first question. How did AI Inclusive and Our Ladies come to be? Like, what was the whole process behind creating those?
Well, Our Ladies, it all started in 2012, and I'm originally from Brazil, and then I moved to the US in 2012, and I was just amazed on like how many things you can learn here for free, like how many resources we had here. So I discovered this thing called meetup.com, and then I started going to these events every night. So back then I was a student, and as you know, coming from Latin America, the dollar is very expensive for us. So my budget was very limited. So going to events to learn for free, and also they provide dinner, was the best of the worlds, like because I had the knowledge for free, and then I had pizza or the dinner for free. So I was like doing two things, very, very, very rich, right? So after going to these meetups, learning about machine learning, data visualization, Hadoop was a big thing back then. I decided to give back to the community, and then I was thinking about, what are the things that I knew that I could share with others. So I was using R back then, and then I thought, why not an R group where we can get together and learn about this wonderful language. But I didn't want to have like a general R group, because one thing that I noticed going to the events was that I was always on my corner because I was different, or I was the only woman, or maybe the only foreign person over there. I didn't feel welcome or safe in that environment. So I said, why not our group where I could feel safe and welcome, and everybody could feel safe and welcome, and a place where we could learn together. So that's how Our Ladies started. So I didn't have the vision to make this a global organization. It was kind of like a selfish starter in a way, because I wanted to give back. So that's not the selfish part, but the selfish part was I wanted to have a community around me where we could learn together, because before that I didn't have a community, especially during my undergraduate years, where most of my colleagues at school were male, and so anyway, so Our Ladies was created in that particular setting, and actually the end of this month it's going to be 8 years that Our Ladies had the first event. And the AI Inclusive, which I started last year, was what I mentioned before, was this desire to make AI more inclusive to everyone.
Wow! That is awesome. That is really wonderful. We have another question coming in, Gabriela. This time it's from Ebonique Boy. He asks, how do you build a great ML team?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And we have to think at first about diversity, right? Diverse of like in general forms, right? Not only about gender and ethnicity, but also like about backgrounds and different experience. So I think the best ML team is a combination of different people. They will bring different ideas, different backgrounds, different experience. So when I'm hiring new people for the team, I don't look at the resume only. I look of like beyond the resume. I don't look at the assignment score. I look beyond the assignment score, right? So That's usually when I keep in mind when I'm hiring and I'm putting together a new team for ML or data science.
Okay, wow, wonderful. I'm pretty sure that's going to be very, very encouraging to everyone out there. We have a question coming here from Sneha Verma. Question is, as a beginner in the field, I'm often confused with the tools and languages that I should start with. Do you have any recommendations on what language a person should start learning with and what tools to use?
Yeah, that's tough. That's very tough. In our field, we have so many options. And then because we have so many options, we are usually lost in in the sea of possibilities, right? So, there is one language that I have to say that it's you have to know, which is SQL or SQL. That's the basic for everything. And then on top of that, it's going to be either and R and Python, right? So I think each language has pros and cons, and depending on what you are using the language for. So I would say, see what you like the best. Take a look at R, take a look at the Python. I'm biased. I really like R, but I think it's very personal. My team, for example, everybody uses Python as the main language. So take a look at the language, see which one you like the best, see if there are tutorials, like the community. It's very important to have a community supporting you in this journey. And then stick with one path. Don't try to learn everything because it's impossible. Like there is a tweet by Jeff Dean from Google, which I think he tweeted 2 years ago, and he was doing this analysis on Archive, which is this repository of articles. And then he said that there are more than 100 machine learning articles being published every day. So how do you keep up with that, right? So don't try to learn everything. Like if you ask a data scientist what are where they spend most of their time, they are going to say it is on data cleaning. So focus on that, because across all the companies, that's what you're going to do the most. And then you go beyond. Then you try, let me try and learn a little bit about statistics, machine learning. I think deep learning, even though it's a very hot and buzzword, I think a lot of companies, they are not there yet. They don't have the capacity or enough data to apply deep learning. So.
Okay. Wonderful. Thank you so much for that. Very thorough answer. Now, we have another question coming in, this time from Adrian, who's in Zurich, in Switzerland. The question is, how did data science change the tools and methods in epidemiology?
How did the tools change?
How did data science change the tools and methods in the whole branch of epidemiology?
Well, it's very similar. Like I see a lot of things that I have done in the past in the industry, very similar to what I did when I was working with epidemiology. That when I was doing research in air pollution, like working with air pollution data and how the air pollution affect people's life, I was using R, right? The type of like statistical methods were very similar to what I did later on in life. So they are very translatable. And one thing that it's not very, that it's hard for us to understand. And once we have this click, then like kind of like it clears things out, which is there are a lot of things that you do in that field that it is the same thing that you are doing in some companies in the industry, but the terminology is different. So you have to understand like the correspondence. It's like kind of like learning a new language. Like it's also like if you think about statistics, a lot of like things in statistics, some words mean something totally different in machine learning and vice versa, right? So it's just like trying to understand how can you translate one thing to the other, but they are very similar. That's the bottom line.
All right, all right, all right, awesome. Well, I hope that answered your question, Adrian. We have another question now, this time from Kenichuku. The question is, hi, Gabriela. What remote or physical internship opportunities would you recommend for a newbie in data science who's from a region with less developed data science industry?
Well, right now with the whole pandemic, there is a good side, which is a lot of like companies are hiring more and more people remotely. So where before you had to be in a certain place to get an internship, for example, now with this possibility of like working remotely, it's a little bit more easier. Uh, One thing to keep in mind is like if you don't get an internship, try to think about other things that you can do in this meantime, which is also like relevant to our career. One example is maybe there is a project or an open source project that are looking for contributors, and they have some labels in the repositories for those projects where they say good first issue, which is aimed for beginners or people that are not very familiar with the project, for example. So if you don't get an internship, you can try to do that as well, or instead. There are several companies, and IBM is one of them. They do have several internships, which is open right now. So you should check the website right now because I know that the openings are already there. And they have like several. And one interesting thing that I didn't know before joining IBM is that the majority of the interns we try to convert for full times, so which is very rare.
Okay, okay. Well, I now I'm pretty sure everyone's going to be stampeding on to the IBM webpage to get a hold of those internships. But well, awesome. Thank you also for letting our lovely attendees know that possibilities are always there. We have also another question coming in. This question states there is some confusion about whether to deal with outliers in the data before or after splitting the data. What would you suggest and why?
Yeah, it's hard to generalize here because it all depends in kind of problem that you are dealing with. Sometimes removing an outlier is not the best thing to do because maybe that data point is very important, even though it's an outlier. So I don't recommend removing the outlier without taking a look of like the meaning of that particular outlier. If you are doing you are good, you're like, oh, this data point doesn't add or is that there's nothing special about this point, you can remove beforehand and then start like kind of like that the data that you are going to go through your analysis. But it's always like, the outlier before, we didn't have, at least during my training in statistics, we didn't have this vision of like, oh, maybe this outlier has a very interesting and important information, right? Before we would just like remove and don't care about the outliers. But nowadays, we know that the outlier can be something very important.
Okay, okay, that is wonderful, and that is also a good thing to know for our data scientists out there. Be mindful of the outliers. Now, another question coming in this time from Charlene and Vishal. What are some of the practical or business problems that you've solved as a data science manager for IBM?
Yeah, that's an interesting question because the nature of our work is very different. So we are not analyzing data from customers or from the IBM website. The data that we have, it's all open source data. It's data that it's either available in the internet or data that comes from IBM research. And then we create tools on top of that. So our problem, which is not a problem, it's our mission or our goal as an organization, is to make open source and AI technologies in our particular group available to everybody. What means is we create tools to make you as a developer or a data scientist or or a person to be able to use AI technologies, even though you don't have the previous knowledge about it. So we are trying to decrease the entry barrier for you to get into this field. And also data science in general. We do data and AI, so the data science piece is also like part of the AI technology. So let me give you an example. So we have two main projects that we created and we are still working and improving on. One is the Model Asset Exchange, which is a repository where you can find deep learning models that have a friendly license, so you can use these models in the enterprise. And we do several steps beforehand, so you don't have to go through this. And then the other project is the Data Asset Exchange, where we have several data sets that are also open for you to use with a friendly license. And 85% of these data sets come from IBM research. So they come from research and they publish in our website. And we also provide not only like tutorials, and we also provide notebooks, like Python notebooks, where we show you how to ingest the data, how to explore those data sets, how to analyze those data sets. So there is a whole path, or like a part that we do that it's around education as well.
Wow, that is wonderful, hands down, amazing. Now, for those of you who are getting started in data science or just want to click on that practical thumb, well, you have a lot of tips and a lot of things that you have working right now. We have another question, Gabriela, coming in. This time from Bare. She says, "Thank you so much for inspiring women in data science. Any tips for finding jobs in this somewhat male-dominated field?"
Absolutely. You have to apply to be, I think, the first thing is apply. And unfortunately, in the data science job fair, or like in the job world, it's very hard to go for the interview. So you are going to apply for 100 jobs, and then maybe you are going to get an email back from 10% of those applications. And then you go to the interview. Usually the interview, it's very tough in the sense of like, they can ask you everything. And sometimes they ask things that they are not even doing in the company. So, and don't get upset if you get rejected, because they are looking for a very specific profile. But I think one, it's apply for as many jobs as you can. Try to network with people. Try to find out what the hiring manager is looking for. Try to connect with other folks in the company as well. Like to also, like, it's good to know what is the culture of the company, especially in this very, not diverse area. So it's very important to know what is the culture of the company, if you are going to feel welcome and safe in that company, right? So apply, network, and if you can, try to show your work. Like, I don't think it's a must that you need to do, but it's a good to have, which is put your projects on GitHub. Maybe write a blog about this. Maybe go to social media and then publicize the work that you do. Sometimes some recruiters are always looking at the social medias to see what is happening, and they can also find you as well. There are so many cases that I know that how they landed that job. So these are some of the tips and suggestions that I would say. Also, try to connect through this conference. For example, there are so many amazing people in this conference, so many people hiring, and that's also like a big plus. So take advantage of communities and conferences like DataScienceGO.
Okay, awesome. Carrying on a bit on that line about interviewing, about finding jobs. Question that comes in from Kevin. The question is, qualifications aside, how do you connect on a personal level when you're interviewing?
That's pretty hard. So So how do you connect in a personal level? Either be yourself. I think be yourself. Is the key, right? Don't try to pretend to be someone else. You are going to have a connection with someone that is interviewing you if they relate to something that you went through, for example. So being yourself is a key to have some kind of connection. And sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't, right? Like also, like you have to think, you have to have a personal connection with someone that is interviewing you, or it's more like it's a job and you don't have to have a connection, and then connection you can establish this connection once you get hired, and then you create this relationship afterwards, right?
Okay, brilliant. I think we have time for a couple more questions. Question coming in from David Lee. The question is, as a new data science bootcamp grad, will projects on GitHub overcome credentials and background gaps? Any strategies for breaking into the field without a college degree?
Yeah, so that's GitHub is one of my favorites. Usually when I'm looking at resume, I take a look at the GitHub profile if the person makes it available. And when they write the projects, if they can link the projects to a GitHub profile, I also take a look at the GitHub profile. So what I'm looking for over there is, can this person tell me a story about the project that they are doing? Like, don't just put the code there. Go beyond. So write a story. Why are you doing this? Why are you choosing certain models? Like maybe the result is not as you were expecting. So what you can do next? So give more information than only coding, like the technical piece, right? So try to go beyond, do data visualization, like try to communicate your results. This is very important to have in your portfolio. And nowadays, because we have so many, again, resources and classes, and you have boot camps, like I think more and more people will be flexible in terms of like your academic experience, right? So I personally, I don't see only the academic side of the person, as I was mentioned before.
Okay, well, that is awesome. And I think that's pretty much the time that we have for the AMA. Thank you so much, Gabriela, for this amazing AMA. For one, I'm delighted by the questions that were asked, and I hope you had a great time as well. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much. And for everybody that is watching us, take advantage of the conference. DataScienceGO has channels, newsletter, LinkedIn groups, and the community is awesome. So take advantage of that. And I hope to see you all soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Gabriela.